Hello and welcome, I'm Lee the Music Reviewer. Happy birthday to the wonderful, weird as fuck David Byrne. And today we're going to be talking about the new Mark Kozelek record called Mark Kozelek. His name may not be one that rings a bell right away, but you're more than likely to have heard his stuff at some point. Maybe it would have been for Red House Painters, which was a indie rock outfit that he was the front man of up until 2001 when they dissolved, and then basically Kozelek went on to do Sun Kill Moon with the rest of the folk from Red House Painters. It was essentially just kind of like a spiritual successor to it, and that band ended up bringing out some of the best folk albums to have came out over the past decade or so. Benji undoubtedly being their best. That's such a popular opinion at this point, but it's popular probably because it's pretty true. It's a beautifully depressing album with a huge focus on mortality that just really touches your heart in a big way. It's easily one of my favourite releases from the 2010s. Last year Sun Kill Moon dropped, and I'm going to see if I can actually remember this without stuttering. Common is light and love are red valleys of blood. Is that right? Yes, it was. Go me. For some reason, whenever I try and remember that name, I always end up forgetting it. But if you had watched my Album of the Year video from last year, 2017, you would have known that I enjoyed it a great deal. Is it accessible? Fuck no. It's like over 2 hours long. It is very time consuming, but it's a time consuming bit of work that just kind of warrants it quite a fair bit. I think some people try and say there's some filler to it, and I wouldn't totally knock them off because there are some points, especially in the latter half, that aren't quite as strong as they are in the first half. But it was definitely like an exciting new chapter in Sun Kill Moon's career. That brings us neatly on to this new project, and admittedly I have never heard one of Mark Kozelek's solo records up until this point. It has basically just been exclusively Sun Kill Moon to me at this point. So I'm not going to go be hyperbolic and say this is his best bit of work ever, because it would be pretty naive of me to try and say that any of his other solo material isn't of this quality. But I do think this is a fantastic album. Mark has definitely learned things from the last Sun Kill Moon project and has just twisted it in a way, made it somehow even more skeletal, but in a way that is just totally appetising, that is, well, a bit kind of difficult in the same way that Common is, just because of its size and of its nature. It's tighter than Common, it's just more captivating, it's just overall better than Common. Now, a common criticism I've seen about this record has been that it's got no structure, it's nothing like Mark has made before, and it's just rambling. And to all three of these critiques, you're right to some extent, but to me that is in its favour entirely. With the rambling, I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of talk about miscellaneous things that sometimes don't really result in anything, but ultimately make everything just feel more genuine to me, if that makes sense. Structure wise, yeah, it's pretty scattershot, and that's where I don't think anyone's probably described Mark Kozelek's music in the terms of Simpsons, but it does feel kind of like that 22 short films about Springfield episode, where you've got all these different like kind of like narratives, or all these different just like things going on, and they're all just kind of like floating about in the ether, and they just ultimately just like are connected in some sort of weird way. It's kind of like the most fitting way I can think to describing it. And in terms of like it being nothing like Mark has made before, yeah, like I guess it's more close to that last Sun Kill Moon project, but it feels so much more bare bones, and I think it's a result of Mark trying to limit himself so much that ultimately he does just start to radiate with just and not so much enjoyable but utterly like mesmerising record. So it was not too far off the same kind of topic that Benji explored, in the sense that with that whole kind of like mortality thing, we get to see Mark just kind of like almost panic about being the age that he is, like pretty much having like a kind of midlife crisis. And the point where this is like where we get to as a listener like kind of explore this in motion is with the song My Love For You Is Undying, which kind of touch upon these two interactions that Mark has with fans, where the first one is like a really obsessed fan that says to him that listening to his music, she's done that more than she has ever slept, which probably seems to be kind of like a more kind of like a happy extreme, knowing that his music's had that such an impact. But maybe because it came from such like negative situations, like people dying and whatnot, that it's starting to kind of like, that whole point is starting to kind of like become more clear to him. There's another fan that's just been like kind of outright rude. I think it kind of like maybe hits the point to Mark that no matter how kind of like idolised he is or how like much critical acclaim he gets, he is still just kind of like another guy. That happens in another song as well, where he's in this store and he points out to the guy, oh, who's that rapping on the radio, and that it's like, oh, it's not the radio, it's Spotify, it's just kind of some guy, this person not even realising that it's Mark. And the guy points out that he's crying, and it's kind of like one of those like really like morbid humorous moments where you're just kind of like, oh man, that's like really awkward in a kind of like funny way, but also you're like, oh god, this is like kind of just really sad. Mark's reactions here could maybe like border on comedic, much like how I do say it sometimes, it's kind of like awkwardly funny at points, but for a lot of it I feel like the writing process is just really authentic, letting people kind of know all these like really really miscellaneous details, some of which don't really matter. Like on the intro track we're getting told about how he prefers to play his guitars, which kind of guitars he prefers, in that kind of sense he does fluff out a lot, but I think it's all to get you into this mindset of putting you into his shoes, seeing how his brain works, and ultimately it's just really consuming. It has to be mentioned how kind of luscious and ambient the instrumental is on this track, and just for most of the album in general. Kozelek sounds so melodic, which obviously isn't like something brand new to him, but considering like how I say like how skeletal and how minimal it is, it really is an achievement to be able to achieve that without ever getting like tiresome. And some tracks here go on for about 13 minutes, but some of them just go like a brisk pace, like because there's no like really like jarring changes or transitions. You feel, like I say, totally immersed, totally captivated. There are changes going through, but they're so like subtly included. Kozelek is really focusing on like looping and really just kind of like relishing in this minimalism, and as I say, it totally pays off. There are tracks here that go on for quite a wee while, but for me it never felt like it was like a slog or a challenge or anything to like sit through. It was a treat. It was just a total treat, especially with this like My Love For You Is Undying. Like he's got this whole refrain of mentioning it, and oh, his vocals, I don't know, I don't think there's ever going to be a point where his vocals aren't so kind of like warm and just totally, I'm trying to think of the right word to use for him, because I want to say kind of gorgeous, but sometimes they are very just kind of like drony, like they kind of like, again, they kind of walk that really thin line of just putting you into the right mood. They're welcoming, they're warm, they're thick, they have so much presence here, and sometimes he breaks it a little bit, like there's like laughing going on, and sometimes they're just kind of like, oh, not so much like rapping, but like to the point where it could be considered as such. It's nothing that's like breaking boundaries or anything like that, but you never get bored of listening to him, both in terms of like looking into his lyrics and just like listening to them in general. Mark himself admits that some may find his work long-winded and agonising, while others may find it hypnotising, comforting and inspiring. And yeah, I just have to admit that I fall much more into this latter category here. Like I say, a lot of miscellaneous rambling at points, but to say it's completely skeletal in terms of lyrics, and again, skeletal is going to be kind of like a prime word to use here. It'd be woefully naive to say that there's nothing of any substance here. Like it's a totally vapid listen, because that, like I say, totally naive. I think you'd be missing the point big time here. The song 666 Post sees Mark express his worry about death, and he's pretty much describing this kind of like dementia state of mind. He keeps repeating himself at points, and all these kind of situations that are a little bit off, and you could pretty much draw the comparisons to that and somebody who's got this condition. As you can imagine, it's kind of morbid, and it works in this, like, again, like really simple guitar work and some kind of like rarely implemented gang vocals. It makes it feel like a bit more meaty, but for this song, they're kind of like, it's kind of eerie and like, but in a very kind of like beautiful sense, almost like I guess when you're talking about like stuff like this, especially death, and that it feels like music that's got that kind of like emotional subtext to it. Blame is similar in nature, where Mark just starts to point out that family and that are taking more photos of him now than ever, because they know that they might not have the chance to do it anymore. He mentions other musicians like David Bowie and Bradley Nowell of the band Sublime. It gets his worry and message across just very aptly. Like, you could definitely see somebody like Kozelek like mentioning people like this, considering he is a musician, and just knowing that, yeah, you can tell that this is something that's really getting to him. He talks about death a lot in here. Sometimes it's more talking about the worry of it coming, sometimes it's totally non-specific but can be tied into it somehow, and sometimes it's just upfront clear, like on the closing track, I Cried You're Mall Street. It ties up everything in the most like Benji way imaginable, where Kozelek just uses the Sheen Saran film as a reference point, just expresses worry about watching more people that he loves dying. Like on that album, was just people like his cousins and people that were close to him dying. They kind of like going through like one by one situation, and considering that it's tying all these things up, I think it's just kind of like the closing chapter to just, at this point, he's not going to be kind of like indirect about it. He's kind of just, he's got like gush and let it all out. We really get to see how poignant and how empathetic and just truly all over the place Kozelek is over this whole album. Just, it's utterly immersive, and I just find it hard to slate it really in any sort of way. Kozelek just undoubtedly hit out with an utterly personal record that is just made to be listened, like I say, with the headphones on. Just these thoughts and these worries consume you. It can almost be a kind of an uncomfortable listen depending on what kind of state of mind that you're in. Like I say, most of the stuff that Kozelek's been putting out and all these different monikers and whatnot are kind of not all that accessible, and I really wouldn't call this like an entry point. So if at this point you've never listened to any other stuff by Kozelek, like under his own name or under Suncommon, I wouldn't say listen to this. I'd say go listen to Benji first, then come back to this, or even listen to Common after Benji, just so you've kind of got like a more of a smooth transition, because I could definitely see a lot of people, if this is like the first album they come to, that they're just going to feel kind of maybe like bored, or just that they're not kind of like used to just Kozelek as a character. Obviously, looking at people that do know his stuff and are just going to be like, well, I just don't like it, and that's totally fair. But for me, I was so surprised by how much I enjoyed it, and I just think it's just utterly great. I can definitely see myself loving this more and more as the year goes on, much like I did with Common is Light. Giving it a rating, I give it a light 9. I will be going on a bit of hiatus, not even a hiatus actually. It's more of a break. Just right now, like, mental state isn't quite the best, especially with this whole news about Scott Hutchinson from Frightened Rabbit, which was just like a horrible situation. It hit me hard. Be back next week, probably covering the new Vale Smith Buffalo Staple album. Wait, is that this week? Yeah, it is this week. My brain again. Yeah, it's definitely not on the right state. But yeah, I'll just need the break. I'll be better after it. This rambling. This is very fitting for this Kozelek review. But yeah, I'll I'll leave it at that. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you guys next week. Just take care.